June 3rd, 2012, up in Oregon House, and Joy is going to tell us about her experiences with Travelall.
Okay, well, the time that I'm going to talk about is late 60s, early 70s. And when my ex-husband came back from Vietnam, one of the things that he did was he purchased an old Travelall. And I think it was International Harvester that made the Travelall. This was a well-used Travelall, but the engine was still in good shape, and it had four-wheel drive. And that was before the days of SUVs, but this was sort of like a forerunner of a SUV. It was a big, powerful vehicle, and we had a number of adventures in the Travelall. I'm going to talk about some of them today. So anyway, as I said, he bought this Travelall, which was not in good shape, but the engine was good and so forth. And so he spent, months getting this thing really fixed up and getting it very customized. Pulled the engine on it and got the engine just running like super, super good. Put special tires on it. I think he put special shocks on it. I know that he had it painted, custom painted, a really beautiful blue, and after that we always talked about Travelall blue. It was a really pretty blue. And there was a front seat, big front seat, and that was it. There was nothing in the back at all. So he got it completely carpeted, floor, ceiling, sides, everything, well, not the windows, obviously. And so that was very nice. And as I said, it was kind of a custom vehicle because, among other things, he wanted to have really heavy-duty, powerful bumpers on this thing. I don't remember if it came with bumpers or if he took the bumpers off or not, but he had a friend who had a welding shop, and I remember going down there with him one day, and Douglas took a sledgehammer with him to this place. He wouldn't tell me why, but took a sledgehammer with him. And this friend of his who had the welding shop had different kinds of metals and stuff, and so he told Douglas, go ahead, pick one out, whatever you like, and Douglas took a sledgehammer to all these different kinds of metal. And he finally got one. I don't remember what kind of metal it was. It was just sort of a dull gray metal, but he heaved the sledgehammer on this piece of metal, and it just sort of went like this, and there was no dent, nothing in this metal. And Douglas said to his friend, that's what I want the bumpers out of. And so his friend constructed bumpers front and back for the Travelall that were like yay high, higher than standard bumpers. And I remember they had three like prong things, 1, 2, 3 across the back to attach it to the back of the Travelall, and then the same in the front to attach it to the front. And they were really powerful. I mean, it kind of made it like a tank, because I remember on one occasion that, well, we won't go there. Anyway, it was
Well, you can't
really,
pass up a good story like that.
Well, on one occasion, a Volkswagen did something inappropriate, and so Douglas backed into the Volkswagen with this thing, and it demolished the front of the Volkswagen. But anyway, of course, with these bumpers, they were pretty heavy, and so the gas mileage, we didn't get very good gas mileage. But in those days, gas was like 25 cents a gallon. And I remember driving past an Arco station one time, and they had gasoline for 31 cents. And I said, nobody's going to stop and pay 31 cents for a gallon of gas. That's ridiculous. But anyway, so it really didn't matter that it took a lot of gas. So anyway, when the Travelall was all all fixed up and good to go and everything, we started taking some different trips in it. And I remember we went up to Mary Mountain, and we went all up through Oregon, Salem, and Eugene, and all that, and along the coast and so forth. And I don't remember which city it was in, but anyway, we were driving along. We had a couple of dogs. We had a couple of great dogs, Sasha and Wuzza. Sasha was an Alaskan Malamute, big, beautiful black and white Alaskan Malamute, and Wuzza was a German Shepherd Collie cross. It is a great dogs. Anyway, we had the dogs with us. Dogs were in the back of the Travelall. We were in the front of the Travelall, and we're driving through some town, some city. And all of these, I don't know whether they were police cars or highway patrol or what, but some type of law enforcement vehicles suddenly emerge and surround the vehicle and force us to pull to a stop. And all these officers get out of the vehicle, and they come over to the car, and they tell my ex-husband to get out of the vehicle. And they told me, get out of the vehicle, and they told me, go stand over there. And they had my ex-husband stand up on this vehicle and, put his hands down like this, and they patted him down and everything, and wouldn't give us any information. We couldn't imagine, what on earth was going on. I'm thinking, okay, I know we were speeding, but I didn't think that they would make that big a deal out of it. But Anyway, so after a while, and they were making, they were consulting with each other, and they were calling stuff in and everything, and my ex-husband is still like this on the vehicle, and I'm still over there thinking, what is going on? And I guess finally they concluded that everything was copacetic, and so my ex-husband said to them, like, what was this all about? And they said that they were looking for federal fugitives, that this pair of federal fugitives, a man and a woman in their 20s with 2 dogs, were traveling through Oregon in a Travelall with a California license plate. And I'll never forget, my husband said, sure, sounds like us, but it's not. It's not. So anyway, they let us go. We got back in the vehicle and kept on our way. But another time, we went up to Mount Shasta, again with the dogs. And we found a nice place to camp, and we were setting up camp. And I remember I had bought or brought, I forget which, a bunch of fried chicken. And so we were having fried chicken. We had our campfire and everything, and the dogs were there. And, we ate our fried chicken, and being sort of young and oblivious, we just, we didn't think about chicken bones or anything. We just were heaving them off into the underbrush, And we noticed that the dogs, who usually like to sit right next to us and be right with us and everything, were squinching farther and farther away from us, and they were literally getting under the Travelall, into the middle, underneath the Travelall. And we're thinking, what on earth is going on with these animals? Why are they doing this? And in the meantime, we're hearing this crunch, crunch, crunch in the underbrush, and we're thinking, I wonder what that is. That sounds big. And of course, that's where I'd thrown the chicken bones, and we'd thrown the chicken bones and, various and sundry other things. And so we were hearing the crunching over here, and then we heard, literally, a mountain lion roar over there. We moved amazingly fast because we thought, okay, there's something big over there in the bushes there, and there's a mountain lion over there. It is definitely time for us to leave. So the dogs didn't need any encouragement. We opened up the back of the Travelall. The dogs leaped in. I mean, we were fighting the dogs to get into the Travelall. We all wanted to get in that fast, and jumped in the Travelall, pretty much left, unfortunately, a lot of our stuff behind in our effort to get out of there. Did get out of there. I remember drove for miles and miles, couldn't find any motel or anything because it was late at night. We finally wound up parking along the freeway outside of Weed, California, and spending the night outside Weed along the highway. So, yes, anyway. Let's see what other things happened. Oh, another time, one of my co-workers was Bonnie Koch, whose husband was Rod Koch, still is Rod Koch. And Rod actually has written, I think, a couple of bestsellers now about his experiences racing the Baja 500 and the Baja 1000, which he did.
One of them was 7 years, start to finish.
Yes,
One
yes.
of the books he wrote.
And he wrote another one, and his second one, I don't remember what the name of the second one was. But anyway, as I said, the time period that I'm talking about, late 60s, early 70s, and I don't know what Baja is like now, but in those days it was pretty wide open and pretty primitive. And so Bonnie and Rod asked us if we would like to go down with them, because one of the things that Rod always did before he raced for either the 500 or the 1000 was that he raced Volkswagens. He would always take one or two of his Volkswagens down and map out the route and be really familiar with it before the race actually began, so he'd know about any obstacles, anything he needed especially to plan for. So we said, sure, that sounds great. So again, took the dogs with us, threw the dogs in the back. Bonnie and Rod took their Volkswagen. Thinking that they each drove a Volkswagen, or maybe there was just one Volkswagen. But we took a Travelall, and they took one or two Volkswagens, and we set off for Baja. And as I said, at that point in time, Baja was just wide open. You could go for miles and miles and miles and not see anybody at all. Some of the country was just beautiful. Some of it was not so beautiful, but it was really neat. One of the things that amazed me, and which is why we had to follow Bonnie and Rod, is because where the route of the race was, there were no roads or anything. It was just, and I don't know how Rod knew where it was going to be or what the route was going to be, but we just followed him, and because there was nobody and there were no roads, it was easy to see them. So sometimes they'd get a fair distance ahead of us. The only bad thing about it was that, of course, the Travelall had no seat belts, no restraints or anything like that, and we're driving, we're four-wheeling over, pretty rough terrain. I remember just bouncing around all over the seat of the Travelall, and by the end of the day, you just felt like you'd been assaulted or beaten up or something because, there's nothing to keep you in place. You're just sort of bouncing all over the front seat. anyway, that wasn't good. But that was a lot of fun. As I said, beautiful country, and I remember stopping in little tiny towns, which would be like 3 houses, and having warm Coke, and but we were glad to have it at that point in time. One of the things that happened to
Coca-Cola, right?
Coca-Cola, right? Yes, Coca-Cola, liquid refreshment. But I remember one of the things that happened to us several times, and again, as I said, we were in our 20s, and in some respects, we were very naive. Even though my husband had just come back from Vietnam, we were stopped, 3 or 4 times down and back by what do you want to call them? Gendarmes, policemen, whatever. And they would ask, we need to see your driver's license, your passport, all this kind of stuff. So we're getting all this stuff out for them, and then they asked for our marriage license. It's like I'm thinking, what do you want? What is all this stuff, And I guess the policeman just got finally really exasperated, and he said, "You have cash money?" And it's like, oh. Okay, yeah, we have cash money. You want a bribe? Okay, we could do that. But I remember we didn't have very much, but I think I had $5 in my pocket. So I said, would this help? And he took the $5. It didn't say a word, just took the $5, gave us back our papers, and said, go, go, go. And so after that, we knew that, okay, if the policeman stopped you, you'd show them your passport and stuff, and then you'd say, would cash money help? And invariably, cash money helped a lot. So even though we didn't have very much, they didn't need very much. So as I said, you live and learn. But anyway, so getting back to this trip that we were taking down in Baja, I wish I could remember the names of the places that we went, but we're talking, 40 years ago, and I just don't. But we got down to the southernmost point of where the race was going to take place, of the route of the race, and we camped right by the ocean. Nobody around for miles, and so we were on the beach right by the ocean, and we did our campfire, and we had each brought food, and we did food, and the dogs were there, and we walked along the beach and everything. It was really it was neat. And so we were both exhausted by then, so we piled into the back of the Travelall and went to sleep, and Bonnie and Rod, I think they brought sleeping bags, and so they were sleeping on the beach. And to this day, I regret this, but the next day, Bonnie and Rod told us that they hadn't gone to sleep yet. They were lying in their sleeping bags by the fire, and a pair of golden wolves came out from the brush nearby and came over and walked past them on the beach and everything, and they were really close, and they were investigating the food scraps and stuff that we had left, and they got a really good look at them, and they really saw them up close and everything, and apparently they went no more than 10 feet from the back of our Travelall, which of course we had open, so if we'd just opened our eyes and been awake, we would have seen these golden wolves, but we were sound asleep, we were oblivious, so we missed the whole thing, but at least I was within 10 feet of a really remarkable animal, but I don't even know if there's any more of them left or not, but that was a pretty neat thing. So anyway, spent a few days down there on the beach, and then turned around and came back a different route, and that was our trip to Baja. So as I said, we had a number of adventures in the Travelall. We used to travel different places, and of course, because the carpet was on the floor, we just throw sleeping bags in, and the dogs and everything. It was really pretty comfortable. And as I said, in those days, gas was quite cheap, and there were all these rest stops up and down I-5 and a number of other highways too. And so it's probably illegal, but in those days, nobody thought much about it. We just pull into a rest stop and spend the night there, because of course there were restrooms and everything, and usually they had like snack machines and so forth. So we would do that. Trying to think what else I can tell you. Well, I think that's about it. Had the Travelall for a few years, and then this was in Southern California when we lived down in Riverside, California. We had the Travelall, and then my ex-husband got a job in Santa Cruz, and I don't remember why, but he sold the Travelall just before we moved up to Santa Cruz. He sold it to a man who was moving to Montana, and we heard later that the guy that moved to Montana didn't have it for but a few months, and then he rolled it over a cliff. He was fine. The Travelall, as I said, was quite a tough vehicle. He was fine, but the Travelall didn't make it. So that was the end of our Travelall. So those are some adventures that we had in the Travelall in a particular period of time in my life.
Good stuff. Thank you for sharing that with us.